I've gone to some risk of my miserable, worthless, wasted life to secure. That's what I was told. I don't necessarily believe that either. I think there may have been other things going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was duped on that one too. Supposedly to secure the safety of a trans person. I put myself at some risk. Keeping in mind that if I get arrested, conditions in a jail, for a good long time there, my immune system, not my immune system, but my tolerance to temperature was better. But because I'm not exercising in Vermont, one thing that the white supremacist movement on the right has done, it's brought out people's tendency to bully. I was safer bicycling the street in Philadelphia at 2 or 3 in the morning than I am walking this road out here. If I hear one more person say, "Oh, Vermont, it's beautiful up there." Yeah, well, if I wanted to see the beauty of Vermont, I could buy a picture postcard. But and I want to say this is another thing that I believed in our Bill of Rights, our Constitution. I still do. Our Bill of Rights, anyway. Often when people argue about the Constitution, they mean the Bill of Rights. In school, they taught us about our freedoms.
Mm-hmm.
Long before anyone ever heard of gay rights. I got quite incensed, and this was not something casual. I was incensed, and I believed, like so many other people, and I was young and I was spaced out, a child. I was like 10 years old. That if that's true, well, then get the hell out of those people's lives, get out of their bedrooms, leave them alone. Because you're telling us in school that they have a right. Hey, the way I interpret it, they have every right in the world to do what they're doing. I don't care. I got better things to do than peep in my neighbor's bedroom window, you know? What, don't you have a television or something? And I mean, I'm trying to be witty about it, but I was very, very, and this was something that came and went. I was very, very relieved when gay rights happened. You know? I was later gay baited by people, of course, they knew nothing about my personal preferences or anything like that, and they didn't care. I'm a little bit on the effeminate side. I used to be worse. And again, there's a whole issue around transgenderism and what may not be, you may not be aware of it, many people aren't, but more and more transgender people are coming forward and opposing the excesses, like what I just told you about my body and what went on in this body, and you don't even know the half of it, believe me. Oh, I was freakishly weak till I was 24, and I started to run, you know, and became very strong for my weight. I weigh about 116, 117 pounds. Giving a child puberty blockers is grotesque and absurd. And aside from anything else, any other, or hormones, would I defend the right of an adult person who identifies as trans to take those drugs? Yes. Do I believe those drugs are filthy poisons? Yes. Will I defend their right to take them? Yes. But don't give them to children. It's an extension. I'm not the only one who's seen this either. It's an extension of the tendency on the part of the extended behavioral health industry to drug anybody and everybody they can, and as much as they can. Which is another thing, the psychiatric drugs, I was treated as a mental case growing up. I would love to continue being in contact with you. I think there are things we could work on together without it becoming And knowing that there are other people out there that seem to be intelligent and open-minded, especially among the young people, that's an inspiration to me. So this is disjointed because I was scared. People I thought of as family are on that militant end of the trans movement, and more than that, they're into violent. I'm afraid that they're instigating a violent revolution in Vermont. Yeah. Look, I saw some things. I saw that gay rights needed to be addressed. I saw that there was a double standard. As one ex-girlfriend said, boy, the feminists really have gotten to you. And yeah, thank God, because I don't call adult human females girls. They're not girls, they're women. Language is important, it's not unimportant. I saw the invasion. I figured the US was going to invade Iraq. I'm not kidding. I put some pieces together and said, you know, I bet they're going to invade Iraq. I could think of a few other things. I saw things in history that didn't make sense, and then later on, sure enough. The savagery at the Capitol was not worse. I think I might have mentioned this earlier. It wasn't worse than the looting that took place last summer. One of the tricks of Antifa, which is largely Antifa, at this point, they're coming out more and more to being violent, and they're trying to convince people that, of course, they're needed as allies in the fight against the right wing. The right wing has a presence in Vermont. It is a dangerous presence. It is nowhere near as dangerous as people would like to make out in Vermont. But there are people, first of all, the right wing would not have done what they did. Over 50 government buildings were burned down during the looting. Hundreds of small businesses. People are showing their true colors by arguing with me, by wanting to cancel me. That the new gimmick is to say you're racist if you criticize the looting, because of course it was during Black Lives Matter protests, except Black Lives Matter didn't really instigate this looting. And I've seen this. One of the reasons I'm upset is I'm sitting here trying to get people in Vermont to listen to me because I happen to have inside information. Do I wish I didn't have it? No, because somebody needs to have it. Look up one of those old fairy tales. I think some of them were Russian. I know they were from Eastern Europe, where the magical bird is flying the hero, and the hero looks down, and the bird says, whatever you do, don't look down. The hero looks down, sees a feather. The bird says, all right, well, you know, I told you not to look down, but now we better get it. It's going to be worse if we don't get it. So go down, get the feather. I do literary craft. And again, I'm hoping that by the rambling nature of this does not turn you off. Because if you ever speak to me again during an interview, I promise I will at least have a few notes. Remember, I told you my sensory input was faulty?
Mm-hmm.
The tension that engendered the bizarre agonies. And one was acute, where it kind of feels like the insulation has burned off the wiring of your nerve harness.
Mm-hmm.
And I've already been told by one woke person who is also in the queer movement, who has since disowned me, that what I have doesn't sound like autism. 31, I won't curse, 31 years old, before I could perceive sound well enough to play a harmonica or perceive the color and texture of a bird flying. It certainly sounds like neurodiversity to me, if there is a neurodiversity. I took to the written and spoken word as well as still photography. And I was not allowed to finish the 9th grade, but in the autumn semester, fall semester of 1977, I was invited by a professor at the local college, Stockton State College in Pomona, New Jersey.
Oh, I know what you're talking about because I'll tell you this is that's where I'm from. I'm from New Jersey.
I have my sympathies, but anyway, actually, after living here, what section, if I may ask?
I am in Monmouth County in Central.
Really? Okay, I had genetic relatives lived up there.
Yep.
Not family.
Hmm.
Genetic relatives, to take my meaning. One of them swindled me out of my inheritance. Or conned my father out of my inheritance. $65,000, $70,000. I can't touch it. Sitting there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He didn't like it that my national heritage. Let me see. You may have heard a little bit about this in the English translations. Don't covet, don't steal, don't bear false witness, don't commit murder.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think I would make them more important than waving a flag, whether it's a flag of Israel, a flag of the US. Any damn fool can wave a flag. And I'm not just any damn fool. So this was Stockton State College, fall of 1977. Mm-hmm. Professor Stephen Dunn invited me to sit in on one of the courses which he took, which was his workshop in poetry. Mm-hmm. Do you recognize the name Stephen Dunn?
No.
Oh, so you'll appreciate the punchline. Stephen was subsequently awarded. Remember, I never finished 9th grade and I had no tuition money. And if you think I'm difficult now, oh my God. The way I am now, I would have trouble with the way I was then dealing with it. Stephen was subsequently awarded the Pulitzer in Poetry for the year 2000. What I learned, is this a characteristic of autism? Depends on how you define autism, but it is perhaps part. I think we all, again, bright people who aren't bright, I think that we all, when we learn something, it always affects more than just in other words, I learned making poems. And I had some very valid work from before taking that workshop. Some of it is misplaced. I think I know where everything is, but that doesn't mean the same as getting to it. It's in a storage area that I've kept through thick and thin down in New Jersey, 500 miles from where I'm sitting. But after taking his course, it's like you're good at something, but then you get to take it with someone and your skills become better. And I've extrapolated it into my other writing. What I learned about, I like a paucity, meaning an economy of language. That's one of the problems, and I'm not the only one that says this with poetry these days. It's like chopped up prose and then not always that good. Prose should have less words and poetry even less. In prose, if you can do with 4 words rather than 5, use 4. If you can do it with 3 rather than 4, do it with 3. With poetry, just take it down a notch. 4, use 3. 3, use 2. Don't try to show people what's going on. Don't try to tell. And I took this because this was before the Blue Heron. This was before I realized that I wasn't a freak of nature, that I was. In fact, I kind of picked that up in 78. Again, this is so choppy, and I'm trying to put it into a letter, an open letter to Dr. Nancy Canwisher. She works with autistic children, if she's still at MIT. May I ask where you go to school? You probably told me, but.
So it's actually an online college called Purdue University Global. That's what I'm attending for my bachelor's.
That's a for-profit though, isn't it?
I don't remember exactly. I would have to double check. I could get back to you about that, but
Well, no, I mean, the thing is that education, especially in the United States, never was as good as it was supposed to be. It's now it's a joke. It's not funny, but it's a joke. And the new woke generation, I've argued with the concept of white privilege in this way, that circumstances alter cases and humans are variable. I had things done to me in Philadelphia that would not have been done if I had been Black. And that was another thing I did. I've been in immediate danger of my life 3 times, and once in not so immediate over civil disobedience.
Mm-hmm.
And I was arrested over the issue of a new trial for Mumia Abu Jamal, the Black Panther who was convicted of shooting a police officer in Philadelphia, of shooting Daniel Faulkner. The movement was spearheaded by Pam Africa of the MOVE organization, or I should say the action, the movement. You probably haven't heard of the MOVE burning, the MOVE bombing in 1985.
Mm-mm.
I highly suggest you look it up. I'm not kidding.
Mm-hmm.
Pam Africa herself called something that was done to me racism or racist. I forget which exact word she used. Pam Africa being Black and being part of the MOVE. Well, if you were familiar with MOVE, you know what I mean. Today, even the definitions of words are being changed. I was thrown off an autism group because some woman accused me of, quote, weaponizing Pam Africa because it's new speak. Have you heard of the book 1984?
That I've heard of.
New speak. Racism does not mean any time we are biased against someone because of their race, or let alone for them. That, in other words, every time we use or somehow race affects our view of people and situations. And of course, again, it's not something that can be, people argue is, like they argue the hard and fast edges of autism. Autism doesn't have hard and fast edges. Dr. Phil was telling a mother who thought her child had autism, well, another doctor said he has schizophrenia. These are absurdities, especially with, there's been any number of research, any amount of research. Psychiatric definitions mean nothing, effectively. They have as much to do with the decision of the individual practitioner. What's this got to do with racism? it is not something that you could put your finger on. That is to say that that was bad. That was a very bad choice. It was too weak. That you can put within boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
I was racist for many years, stopped being racist, became racist again. And then, of course, I stopped when the Chinese medicine, it changed everything. Changed everything. I still don't like many of the things I've done since I got involved with Chinese medicine. I don't like some of the things I've done over the last year.
Mm.
Many things that I've done I don't like. I don't believe in good and evil, but I do believe in harm and hurt, contrasted to healing and easing.
Mm.
And but as I say, I was thrown off the autism group because I said racism is not just a structure imposed on people of color. And that Pam Africa, as example, well, people listen to Malcolm X, and they, the people now, younger people, are indoctrinated into a false, many phrases. Language has become stilted. And, and as a matter of fact, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, with all the people that we've been taught to look up to or told to look up to in this country, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Thomas Jefferson, Thomas Paine, Abraham Lincoln, if you ask me for five.
Mm.
Who, by the way, Lincoln, he was just as amazing as you've heard, maybe more so.
Mm.
I mean, he was anti-slavery from the get-go.
Mm.
What do I think of slavery? An unspeakable horror.
Mm.
Unspeakable. Doesn't matter who it's done to. It's said that mental illness and autism cause homelessness. People are going to get upset and disturbed if they're homeless. And believe me, some of the food that I tried, not when I was homeless, I knew better by then, but I tried a couple of soup kitchens in Philadelphia back in the day when I had housing in Philadelphia.
Mm.
And I remember thinking, it's not a wonder that I get sick on this, but it's a wonder that everybody that eats it does. I mean, if this is the best they can do, I mean, really. Is it better than nothing? I wonder. What I'm getting at, the interrelationship between things, like the language becoming stilted. I picked up a thesaurus not too long ago. It was in a free table at a thrift store. I give out books, I give out goods. You notice there's a bookshelf in back of me. What you're seeing, maybe you can see it. Virtually everything in this room is to be redistributed if I could find anybody who wants it. Nobody wants a book anymore. They all want to go online.
Yeah.
This thesaurus is supposed to be very carefully set up to give you essentially synonyms, antonyms, homonyms. Well, maybe not the homonym. Maybe not even the antonym, but I'm sure the synonym. So I pick up this thesaurus and I look, it's not a thesaurus. It's a not very extensive Webster's dictionary. It's not a thesaurus. And what I'm getting at, you're young, you're 23. So much that was the norm 20 years ago. So many things that were a common norm have been discarded and changed. And even the definitions, like racism, like thesaurus. Somebody said, why should we go to the expense of putting together a thesaurus so we could just leave the usual, take a dictionary, which often has a synonym as part of its, the word has synonyms to describe it. We just leave it pretty much intact and sell it as a thesaurus.
Mm.
The food, there was knowledge. See, here's another piece that's out of joint, of conditions such as mine 30, 40 years ago. You don't hear about them anymore. We would have less autism, mental illness, dysfunction, and ill health if people were more aware of eating real food. This isn't superstition. You don't want to hold a crystal in your hands, fine. You don't want to believe it's a proactively spiritual universe, fine. But it's biologically sound that the human body created, evolved. Many peoples in this world don't believe there's a difference between the two. I don't. It was evolved to ingest biochemicals, certain biochemicals. That's what's in real food. Diane DePrima, who apparently being a good Marxist, although the Marxists today, they claim they're not Marxist-Leninists, but they are, most of them. She was, I believe, anti-gay, but she even wrote a poem, it was in a book, Revolutionary Letters. If I can't pronounce it, maybe I shouldn't, she's quoting her little child, if I can't pronounce it, maybe I shouldn't eat it because of all the chemicals. Which, by the way, toward the end of my living in Egg Harbor City, I used to get gay baited. Now, I was not about to try to convince people that I wasn't gay because, first of all, not first in order of importance, but I will first mention that people who want to pick on somebody, they don't care. They don't need an excuse. And secondly, if you allow people even that much space into your life, in other words, I have a right to be whatever I want, I do whatever I want within, as long as it's a consenting adult in private, without their approval or disapproval. So I armed myself. I had a bicycle locking chain. I think I still have that somewhere. And I draped it around my torso, and I would ride my bicycle rather than walk. So I had a kind of an excuse for carrying the chain. And I'd have a better chance of getting away from somebody and possibly of beating their head in if they attacked me. And this really happened. There's another important point. I did resolve to try not to ramble during this talk, but I'm not succeeding. The very subliminals, person such as myself exhibits, and it used to be worse. They attract people's attention, whether people realize it or not. If you see what I mean. They attract people's attention. Now, Marina Brown, who is the trans person who disowned me for opposing, they deny it, but I think in reality they needed to get me out of the way because they pulled something politically that isn't even legal. The Liberty Union Party, that's where Bernie Sanders got his start. I don't think he left because he felt the Democrats offered him more scope only. I think he got disgusted at what was going on in the Liberty Union Party. I'd love to ask him someday. He is the best we've seen in a while. Well, they took over the party and they had to squeeze me out because Marina's bounced a few things off me. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? And Marina realized I'm sharp, and I would have stood in the way of Marina doing. Basically, it's been turned into a front for violent revolution. But Marina, and here's a good point, insists that they get picked on for being trans, but they don't really get picked on for being trans. Marina, from what they told me, were picked on all their life. Just they're weird. They have some feminine characteristics. They're one of those people, even though Marina's big, that got picked on. They would be picked on. A tough, strong-looking man running, tough, strong-looking, isn't necessarily going to get harassed, but Marina would be harassed while running, where they came from Medford, New Jersey. Used to be Anthony Teskey. And people to this day don't take Marina as trans. They take Marina as a man. But you see, that's the point. Everything is very complex in our times, just as with autism. I didn't tell you that autism doesn't exist. But maybe what I am telling you is you should be looking for a common ground rather than a borderline. You see? Just be thankful you didn't grow up the way I did. No, I mean, I'm not looking for your pity, but it was bad. Okay. You're making subliminals like it's time to quit.
Well, I was just looking at with the time and everything, but either way, it just like your story, just like there's a lot of messages that really I feel like that the community should be listening to, because there are things that people can get out of this. So I really do thank you a lot for coming on.
Well, I think it's important that you have I'm going to watch my language again, a marginal person such as myself, because that's the point, isn't it? I'm trying to put into writing, into print. I'm trying to start to define where I went wrong, where the system did me in, where people's attitudes did me in. Mm-hmm. I'm going to take the liberty of sending you a poem, which was the first attempt to put into an actual recorded composition the bizarre symptomatology of this thing. Mm-hmm. And believe me, and the thing, keep in mind, is that everything described in the poem was physiological, not psychological. Mm-hmm. And I should compose a disclaimer to go with the poem, because people could read it and think of psychological symptoms. Mm-hmm. I think Freudianism is a mental disorder. That's what's a joke, but actually it's not even Freud. It's what psychiatry's become. I am anti-psych, in case you hadn't figured that out. All right, so we're going to sign off now.
Yes, thank you.
You promise that we can keep in touch, at least in some way, every couple of weeks to a month?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
I really want to work with you. I'm looking for people.
That's what I've been doing. A lot of guests have been reaching out and everything, and I just want to say this for all the guests that have been coming on for the past year and stuff, that very fortunately that I've been continuing to collaborate with people to be able to continue to benefit the community and everything. So absolutely, Scott Norman. Absolutely.
You have a bit of a slur in your voice, which is, again, a neuro effect. And it's like I've seen.
I didn't say my communication was a very hard thing for me. I didn't say my very first word until I was 6 years old. So, and I didn't fully.
You were 6.
Until I was 6 years old. That's correct.
If I were you, I would look at those phenomena and say, "Oh, it's because I'm autistic." No, that's bass backwards, as we used to put it. It's because you have those characteristics that somehow you have wound up in the category. Autism, to me, is not a condition or a category. It is a categorization.